Hello friends, this is Nitin from Nitin's Picks, and this is my first video on the US markets. I thought it would be best to first cover the major indices of the US markets and provide my analysis for the same. Hence, I would be covering around 10 indices as such, and I would like to start with the top three indices, which is S&P 500, Dow Jones, and Nasdaq. Of course, to start with. So here's the weekly chart of S&P 500, and as you can see, the S&P 500 has been in a very smooth bull trend as such. Since the time it kind of started giving an uptrend from October of 2022, it has been in a clear uptrend, right? The stock faced some resistance in July of 2023, after which it retraced fairly uh, down as such. And if you see, it retraced till, if you look at this downswing, actually, it did 61.8% on the Fibonacci ratio, and since then it has again been rising upwards, right? So it's in a fairly comfortable bull trend as such, and there is no reason for any existing holders of an ETF on S&P or a mutual funds to exit at any point of time right now. And it is also very comfortably above the 200-day moving average, which is this blue line, the 50-day moving average, which is this red line, and the 20-day moving average, which is the green line, right? It has been trending along with these averages very, very comfortably, right? So there is no reason for us to get out at any point of time. However, it is fairly extended, for any new entrant right now. So I would not recommend, any new trader, any new entry for a trader to get into S&P. We might have to wait for some kind of a consolidation or some kind of a retracement for it, for it to happen. Where might a potential retracement come? Let's look at again some Fibonacci analysis to see if there is any potential levels which we could see here. Right. So 4,900 was a level where we could have probably seen some kind of a resistance. However, it has very comfortably, passed that as well. So frankly, we'll have to really wait and watch if we get some kind of a retracement, because it is in a completely blue sky zone right now, and there are no resistance upwards as such. Um, you know, at least till 5,400. So we'll have to really wait and watch when does that retracement or consolidation come for a new entry. So that was my analysis for S&P, and I hope that was useful. Now turning to Dow Jones, a fairly similar, uh, you know, a bull run also in Dow Jones. It has been very comfortably trending along with the 50-day moving average and also the 20-day moving average, and is fairly comfortably above the 200-day moving average as such. So again, existing holders might continue to hold Dow Jones, but new entrants, might have to wait for some kind of a consolidation slash retracement, because it is fairly extended. It has almost gone from 32,000, 33,000 to 38,000. So that's a fairly extended uh extended ride for an index, as such. So I would hold, but as a new entrant, I would not enter right now. Nasdaq, right? So Nasdaq is a slightly different story. Uh, you know, uh, Nasdaq saw a fairly deep retracement, from July of 23, till October of 23. And let's see what kind of retracement did it see from a Fibonacci levels perspective. Yeah, so if you see on this, upswing, it almost gave a 38.2% retracement. Right, I see that in the US markets, the stocks and indices follow the Fibonacci levels, very well and fairly accurately, right? So, hence, it's always good to, follow the Fibonacci analysis. So it gave a 38.2% retracement, and it has very comfortably also broken out of this particular resistance, or the all-time high resistance, right in the month of December. And as you can see, we saw some bit of a retracement here, and then since then it has broken out very comfortably, right? So Nasdaq, I believe, is just broken out of its all-time high, and it might still be like a decent level to to enter. And also the stock, also the index has been kind of consolidating a bit on the daily time frame if you were to look at it, right? So it might not be a bad idea to uh, focus on some stocks on Nasdaq or also the index. And if we see further consolidation, it might not, it might give us an opportunity to enter into Nasdaq vis-a-vis the other two indexes, which is Dow Jones and S&P. So if I were to select one of the three indexes through an ETF, it would be Nasdaq 100 rather than Dow Jones and S&P. Great. I hope this was useful, and this was my analysis for the top three indexes. Now let's turn towards some of the sectoral indexes. So this is Nasdaq Internet. Uh, Again, this has been moving in a in a good swing. But I believe there is a lot of um, there is a lot of space for it before it sees the next resistance. Uh, you know, at these levels, right? So there is no serious resistance as such, for Nasdaq Internet uh, till the levels of almost 15,000, 1,570. And right now it is only at 1,100 or 1,200 as such. So there's a lot of space, for this, index to move up. Um, and, it has been comfortably floating above the 200-day moving average, the 50-day moving average, and the 10-day moving average as well. So this is an interesting, index to focus on. If you look at Nasdaq Computer, this is almost fairly, similar to the Nasdaq index, except for the fact that it is a bit more extended than Nasdaq. Right. Again, if you see, it gave a retracement in July of 23, took some retracement, almost touched the 200-day moving average. It broke the 50-day moving average, but touched the 200-day moving average and went up, and then comfortably broke the all-time high resistance. Did a bit of a retracement, has been going up, right? So not a bad sector to look at and see if there are some potential entries in some stocks here, or and any kind of a sectoral ETF if available in this particular sector. Now this is an interesting one, which is called Nasdaq Industrial. This is obviously not gone up like the way the Nasdaq or some of the other sectors has gone up, right? If you see, it started like an upswing again, from December of 2022, but took a very deep retracement, from July of 23. If you look again at the Fibonacci analysis of this, right, it had a fairly accurate 61.8% retracement, and it started to rise again. It took resistance at this clear resistance level. It took some kind of a small replacement, is again now at the resistance level. So there's a high probability that it should be able to easily surpass this resistance level. So if it were to break through this resistance zone, right? This might be a good entry point, for Nasdaq Industrial, index as such, right? And where could we see the next resistance? One, it could be somewhere here, which is around 1P levels. Obviously, there's one all-time high. Sorry, one's all-time high resistance here. Uh, and if you were to draw some Fibonacci analysis on this, right? So we might see some resistance in the zone of 10,360, to 10,900. And after that, only around 12,000, right? So this is for me an interesting sector, which might give us an opportunity to enter, as soon as it breaks out of this particular zone and is able to sustain the breakout, right? So keep a watch for Nasdaq Industrial. All right. Now this is a biotechnology. Again, a fairly interesting sector. It is at a resistance zone right now. If you see, this is like a resistance area, right? And it has been consolidating, just near the resistance zone. So again, if it were to break out of this, it might be a good entry point in the biotechnology sector. And it has been floating over the 50-day moving average, and above the 200-day moving average. Right. So for me, again, this is also a very interesting sector, along with the industrial sector, to keep a watch for that. If it gives a breakout, we could take an entry, in this sector. Telecommunication. This is the telecommunication sector index. So if we see very clearly, it is, it has taken, resistance, at this zone, and has been falling, fairly deeply. If you look at the daily chart, it has been falling right now. So we'll have to really see if it takes some kind of a support in the this support zone. It is coming here. I believe it might actually fall till here, and then we'll have to watch if it were to, kind of take support here. If it were to continue to fall down, then, it might be a short candidate actually. So let's just wait and watch how this behaves. But if it were to actually break out of this resistance zone, then it might be an entry point. So this is, I would say, in a no man's land, we'll have to really wait and watch as to what does this particular, index really do. Now, this is the healthcare index. Now, this is one which I feel is, shaping up very well, right? So if you look at the weekly chart of Nasdaq Healthcare, this is a clear resistance zone, for Nasdaq. It tried to, hit once, retraced, second time, retraced, third retrace, fourth retrace, fifth retrace, sixth retracement, right? So it's continuously hit this resistance line and has been falling down, right? It almost formed like a triangle pattern, but it broke towards the downside. Now, since then, it has been having a fairly good upswing, and interestingly, it is consolidating in a very tight zone just above the resistance zone. If you see, look at this, right, it's very, very tight, right? Small candles and very tight zone, right? So I believe if it were to break out of the zone, healthcare might give us a great breakout, in the short term. So please keep a watch out for healthcare index. Also, it has been floating above the 50-day moving average, and the 200-day moving average as such. So it's an interesting sector. The Nasdaq insurance, ever since it broke out of this resistance zone, at these levels, it has been comfortably in a upswing above the 200-day moving average and the 50-day moving average, and also the 20-day moving average. So I believe this is, if anybody is holding the sector, should continue to hold unless they see it breaks below the 50-day moving average, you can continue to hold. But I would not recommend any new entry into the sector because right now it's a fairly extended entry already. All right, now this is the transportation index. If I will draw some lines, for this, 1 minute. Right, so yeah, this is an interesting sector because if you see, it is just kind of breaking out of its resistance zone and it has not really gone that much up, right? So if it were to sustain above the resistance area and if it were to consolidate or give some kind of a up move, the transportation index also might be one of the good indexes to enter into, right? So I will, at the end of this video, just call out those indexes which I feel, are interesting ones to look at, from an entry standpoint. Again, it has been floating comfortably above the 50-day moving average and trending along with the 20-day moving average and fairly comfortably above the 200-day moving average as such. Last but not the least, this is the banking index. A very, very interesting price action here. As we can very clearly see, there was a double bottom pattern here, right? Let me try to see if I can draw that for you. Right. So, right. So ever since it has broken out of this midpoint of the, uh, double bottom pattern, of the W pattern, whichever way you want to call it, it kind of retraced a bit and it has been taking support, on this support zone, which is the midpoint of this pattern, right? So I am assuming that it should be able to again resume its uptrend. It is slightly below the 50-day moving average right now. If we were to see it on the daily index, we can see it is trying to break out of this 20-day and the 50-day moving average. So if it were to break out of this 20-day, 50-day moving average, I'm assuming that it will continue its uptrend, right? So it might face resistance not before this area, which is around 4,400, right? So right now it's around 3,500. So again, we have like a fairly good, uh, space, for the index to move, right? But keep a watch out that it's right now below the 50-day moving average. So it's not like a point where we can enter. But if it were to start trending above the 50-day moving average, it might give us a good entry point. So this was my analysis about the various sectors. I hope it was useful. Let me try to recap which sectors I'm finding interesting, right? So Nasdaq, slightly extended, but if it, it's not that extended like S&P and Dow Jones. So if it were to consolidate it versus some retracement, it might be a good index to look at. Industrial, as I said, if it were to break out of the resistance zone, we could probably look at some entry here. This is the biotechnology index. It's been it's been consolidating just around the resistance zone. So if it were to break out again, this is a very interesting index to focus at. Healthcare, I think one of the best of the indexes right now. It's consolidating in a very tight zone. So if it were to break out, it could give us a good entry point. Transportation index, it has just kind of broken out of its resistance zone. So if it were to continue to sustain and move up, then it could give us an entry point. And the banking sector, if it were to move above the 50-day moving average, it might be a good index to focus on again. So these are the various indexes which I want to talk about, and I hope this was a useful analysis. And I will shortly come back with more analysis. But I'll be very encouraged if you can give me any feedback, about this analysis, and also subscribe to my channel. So I look forward to talking to you next. Have a great day, ahead, and a great trading week ahead as well. Thank you so much, and talk to you next. Bye bye.